Get your ghetto ass out of my store before I call the police. The venomous words sliced through the air of the upscale Eclat Mode flagship store. Kevin Miller's palm connected with Imani Jones's cheek in a sharp crack that made 50 shoppers gasp and freeze mid-step. Cell phones emerged from purses and pockets like weapons drawn in unison. Children stared wide-eyed as their mothers pulled them closer. The security cameras blinked red overhead, capturing every second of the assault. Imani stood motionless, her hand touching the burning skin on her face. Her tailored blazer remained perfectly pressed. Her designer briefcase never left her grip. Not a single word escaped her lips, but something dangerous flickered behind her eyes. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting for her next move. Have you ever witnessed someone make a mistake so catastrophic that you knew their world was about to crumble? 10 minutes earlier, Imani Jones had walked into Eclat Mode with one simple goal: return a defective $3,200 handbag and speak with corporate about the store's quality control issues. She'd purchased the Italian leather piece 3 days ago, only to discover a broken zipper and loose stitching that screamed poor craftsmanship. The Manhattan flagship store buzzed with Saturday afternoon energy. Wealthy shoppers browsed racks of designer clothing while associates hovered nearby, eager to assist. The marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and soft jazz played through hidden speakers. Imani approached the customer service counter where a young associate with perfectly styled blonde hair looked up with practiced politeness. "How may I help you today?" "I need to return this handbag and speak with your manager about a quality issue." Imani placed the designer bag on the counter, her voice calm and professional. The associate's smile faltered as she examined Imani's receipt. "Oh, well, returns on luxury items require manager approval." Her tone shifted, becoming cooler. "But he's very busy right now." "I'll wait." 20 minutes passed. Imani watched as other customers received immediate attention while she remained ignored. A white woman with a similar return was processed within 5 minutes. Another received a full refund plus store credit for her inconvenience. Finally, Kevin Miller emerged from the back office. 38 years old, with slicked back hair and an expensive suit that couldn't hide his cheap cologne. He surveyed Imani with undisguised disdain. "What seems to be the problem here?" He didn't make eye contact, instead focusing on the handbag, like it personally offended him. "I purchased this 3 days ago. The craftsmanship is subpar for a luxury item. I'd like to return it and discuss this quality issue with your corporate office." Kevin's laugh was sharp and condescending. "Lady, you probably damaged this yourself trying to stuff too much junk inside. We can't take back merchandise that customers have abused." Imani's phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a reminder. Board meeting, 2:30 p.m. She had exactly 10 minutes to wrap this up and get to the corporate office 6 blocks away. "Sir, I haven't damaged anything. The stitching was already loose when I purchased it." "Your quality control?" "My quality control?" Kevin stepped closer, his voice rising. "Listen here. We don't cater to people who buy expensive things they can't afford, then try to return them when buyer's remorse kicks in." Other shoppers began to notice the commotion. A few pulled out phones, sensing drama. Imani remained perfectly composed, her professional demeanor intact, despite the growing insult. "I can afford this handbag, sir. I simply expect quality for the price paid." "Sure you can." Kevin's eyes swept over her dismissively. "Let me guess. Maxed out credit cards? Trying to impress someone at your job? We see your type all the time." The crowd grew larger. A fashion blogger named Chloe Park started an Instagram live stream whispering to her 12,000 followers, "Y'all, something crazy is happening at Eclat Mode right now. This manager is being totally racist to this woman." Comments flooded in immediately. "What's happening? This is disgusting. Get his name, record, everything." Imani checked her Rolex, a custom piece worth more than Kevin's monthly salary. "I need to speak with your corporate office now." "Corporate?" Kevin laughed louder. "You think corporations care about some random customer complaint lady? They pay me to handle problems like you." He crossed his arms and deliberately blocked her path to the customer service counter. Two associates, Lauren and Chris, flanked him like backup dancers, their faces showing varying degrees of discomfort but unwillingness to intervene. "Problems like me?" Imani's voice remained level, but something cold entered her tone. "Yeah, people who think they deserve special treatment just because they walk into an upscale store. This isn't Walmart. We have standards here." Chloe's live stream hit 8,000 concurrent viewers. The comments section exploded. "Fire him." "What's the store manager's name?" "This is 2025 and this is still happening." "Screen record this, everyone." Another shopper, a white woman in her 60s, spoke up. "Excuse me, young man, but you're being very rude to this customer." Kevin spun around. "Ma'am, please don't interfere. This woman is trying to scam us." "Scam you?" Imani's Platinum American Express Centurion card was briefly visible as she adjusted her grip on her briefcase. The black card with its distinctive design was unmistakable to anyone familiar with luxury spending. Only customers who charged over $200,000 annually received invitations for the exclusive card. But Kevin either didn't notice or didn't understand its significance. Yeah, scam. Buying expensive items, damaging them, then demanding refunds. We see it all the time with... He paused, his eyes narrowing. "People like you." The racist undertone was no longer subtle. It hung in the air like toxic gas. Chloe's stream reached 15,000 viewers. Screenshots were being posted to Twitter. TikTok users started their own recordings from different angles. Imani's phone buzzed again. Urgent board meeting moved to 2:45 p.m. She had 5 minutes. "Sir, I'm going to ask one more time. Please process my return and connect me with the corporate. And I'm going to tell you one more time, no." Kevin stepped even closer, invading her personal space. "Maybe you should shop somewhere more appropriate to your budget." The crowd gasped. This was no longer about a handbag return. This was about dignity, respect, and the ugly reality of retail racism that still plagued upscale stores. Imani remained perfectly still, her dark eyes studying Kevin's face like she was memorizing every detail. The designer briefcase in her hand seemed heavier suddenly, full of secrets that could change everything. But Kevin Miller had no idea what storm he was about to unleash. The tension in éclat mode thickened like fog rolling in from the harbor. What started as a simple return had transformed into a public spectacle, drawing customers from every corner of the 3-story flagship store. Regional Manager Diane Vance received the emergency call while reviewing quarterly reports in her Midtown office. "Ma'am, we have a situation at Store 47. The manager is, there's a confrontation with a customer. It's going viral on social media." Diane's stomach dropped. Store 47 was their crown jewel, the Manhattan flagship that generated $15 million annually. "I'll be right there." Meanwhile, Kevin's aggression escalated. "Security," he called out, his voice echoing through the marble-floored store. "We need this woman removed immediately." 2 security guards approached cautiously. David Carter, a veteran guard who'd worked retail security for 15 years, hesitated when he saw Imani's composed demeanor. Something about her calm presence in the face of such hostility struck him as unusual. "Sir, what's the situation?" David asked, his trained eye taking in the scene. "This woman is causing a disturbance. She's trying to return damaged merchandise and making threats when we refuse." Imani's eyebrow raised slightly. the first crack in her perfect composure. "Threats? I haven't threatened anyone." The crowd murmured agreement. Chloe's Instagram live stream had exploded to 25,000 viewers, with comments flying by so fast they were barely readable. "She's not threatening anyone. This manager is lying. Someone call the news. Get his name and fire him." A Twitter thread by NYC Fashion Watch was gaining traction. Thread: witnessing blatant racism at a Clot Mode Manhattan flagship. Store manager Kevin Miller just slapped a black customer who was trying to return a defective handbag. This is 2025. This is unacceptable. A Clot Mode, trot racism. The tweet already had 500 retweets and climbing. Diane Vance burst through the store entrance, her heels clicking rapidly against marble as she surveyed the crowd. 80 people now surrounded the customer service area, phones held high like torches at a rally. "What exactly is going on here?" Diane demanded, her authoritative voice cutting through the murmur. Kevin straightened his tie, suddenly confident again. "Diane, thank God you're here. This woman became belligerent when we refused her fraudulent return. She threatened me and our associates." Diane's eyes swept the crowd, taking in the dozens of recording devices. Her public relations training kicked in immediately. Whatever happened here would be dissected across social media within the hour. "Ma'am," Diane addressed Imani with professional courtesy, "I apologize for any confusion. I'm Diane Vance, regional manager. Perhaps we can resolve this situation quietly in my office." "There's nothing to resolve quietly," Imani replied, her voice carrying clearly across the silent store. "Your manager just physically assaulted me in front of 50 witnesses. This isn't a customer service issue anymore." The word assaulted sent shockwaves through the crowd. Several people pressed closer, wanting to hear every word. "Now wait just a minute," Kevin interjected, his face reddening. "She's exaggerating everything. I barely touched her, and only because she was becoming aggressive." "I have video evidence that says otherwise," Chloe called out from the crowd, holding up her phone. 25,000 people just watched you slap this woman for asking to return a handbag." Diane's blood pressure spiked. 25,000 witnesses to a potential assault. The legal exposure alone could destroy careers. "Sir," David, the security guard, said quietly to Kevin, "maybe we should step back and let management handle this." But Kevin was too far down the rabbit hole to stop digging. "No, I'm not going to let some entitled customer come in here and disrupt my store. She probably bought this handbag at a knockoff shop and tried to return it here for full price." The accusation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Imani's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her briefcase handle. "Mr. Miller," Diane hissed under her breath, "please stop talking." But Kevin was on a roll, his voice growing louder as his audience grew larger. "You want to know the truth? People like her think they can intimidate us with social media and fake outrage. Well, I've got news for you. This is private property, and I have every right to refuse service to anyone." A woman in the crowd shouted back, "You can't refuse service based on race." "Who said anything about race?" Kevin's defensive tone betrayed his guilt. "This is about behavior, about respect, about knowing your place." The phrase, "knowing your place," sent a collective gasp through the crowd. Even Diane Vance closed her eyes in despair, knowing that phrase would be headline news within the hour. Imani checked her watch again. The board meeting had started without her, but something told her this was more important than quarterly reports. "My place?" she repeated, her voice so quiet that people strained to hear. "And where exactly do you think my place is, Mr. Miller?" "Look, lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but it's not a game." Imani's interruption was soft, but absolute. "And I suggest you be very careful with your next words." The crowd sensed a shift in energy. Something was changing in the dynamic between these two people, though no one could quite put their finger on what. A local news blogger in the crowd recognized the viral potential and started her own live stream. "This is Jessica Soto from NYC Street Beat, and I'm witnessing what might be the customer service disaster of the year at Eclat Mode." The store's corporate communications team was already fielding calls. Stock prices for Apex Holdings Group, Eclat Mode's parent company, began their first tiny downtick as algorithmic trading programs detected negative sentiment on social media. Kevin, oblivious to the larger forces at play, continued his tirade. "You people come in here with your attitudes, demanding special treatment, thinking the world owes you something. Well, I've got news for you. It doesn't." Diane Vance knew her career was potentially over. In retail management, viral racism scandals were career killers. She had to salvage what she could. "Mr. Miller, you're suspended effective immediately. Please go to the back office." "Suspended?" Kevin's voice cracked. "For what? For doing my job? For maintaining standards?" "For assaulting a customer?" Diane snapped, her composure finally breaking. The crowd erupted in approval. But Imani remained perfectly still, watching the chaos unfold around her like she was studying an interesting experiment. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. "Emergency board meeting postponed. Social media crisis developing. Need you ASAP." Imani looked at the message, then at Kevin Miller's increasingly panicked face, then at the 80 people recording every moment of his professional destruction. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth, the first emotion she'd shown since walking into the store 30 minutes ago. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the silent store. "I think it's time we had a proper conversation about standards." The silence in Eclat Mode was deafening. 80 people held their breath as Imani Jones slowly opened her designer briefcase with the deliberate precision of a surgeon preparing for a critical operation. Kevin Miller's confidence wavered for the first time. Something about her movements, too controlled, too purposeful, sent warning signals through his nervous system. Diane Vance stepped closer, her regional manager instincts telling her this situation was about to take an unexpected turn. "Standards," Imani repeated, her voice carrying across the marble-floored store like a judge pronouncing a sentence. "Let's discuss standards, Mr. Miller." From her briefcase, she withdrew a leather portfolio embossed with gold lettering. The crowd pressed closer, phones straining to capture whatever revelation was coming. "Do you know what real standards look like?" Imani asked, opening the portfolio to reveal official corporate documents. "They look like quarterly performance reports showing Store 47 ranks in the bottom 15% for customer satisfaction." Kevin's face went pale. Where did you get those?" "They look like discrimination complaints filed against this specific location." She turned a page, her voice growing stronger. 14 formal complaints in the past 6 months, all from customers of color, all dismissed by management." Diane Vance's legs nearly gave out. Those complaints were confidential corporate documents accessible only to senior executives and legal teams. "They look like employment lawsuits waiting to happen." Another page turned. "Sexual harassment settlements, workers' compensation claims denied, OSHA violations swept under the rug." The crowd murmured in shock. Chloe's Instagram Live had reached 45,000 viewers with comments exploding. "How does she have these documents? Who is she? This is getting crazy." Kevin's voice cracked. You can't have access to those files. Those are private company documents." Imani looked up from the portfolio, her dark eyes meeting his for the first time since he'd slapped her. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Miller. They are private company documents." She reached into her briefcase again, this time withdrawing a business card holder made of platinum and ebony. The crowd watched in fascination as she selected a single card and held it between two fingers. "I'm Imani Jones," she announced, her voice carrying clearly across the stunned store. "Chief Executive Officer of Apex Holdings Group." The card fluttered to the marble floor between them like a white flag of surrender. The reaction was instantaneous and explosive. Gasps echoed through the store. Phones nearly dropped from shocked hands. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God!" and it rippled through the audience like a prayer. Kevin's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. His eyes darted from the business card to Imani's face to Diane Vance, who looked like she might faint. Apex Holdings Group, the parent company that owned Eclat Mode, the conglomerate that controlled 847 luxury retail stores across North America, the corporation whose CEO he had just physically assaulted in front of 80 witnesses and 50,000 live stream viewers. That's impossible," Kevin stammered. You can't be the woman you just called ghetto?" Imani's voice remained perfectly calm. "The woman whose place you think you know. The woman you physically assaulted for trying to return a defective product in a store I own." Diane Vance's training kicked in, and she immediately dropped to one knee to retrieve the business card. Her hands shook as she read the embossed text. Imani Jones, Chief Executive Officer, Apex Holdings Group. The logo was identical to the one on her own corporate handbook. "Ms. Jones," Diane whispered, her career flashing before her eyes. "I had no idea." If you had known, you would have treated me differently?" Imani's question cut through Diane like a blade. "So the only reason to treat customers with dignity is if they might be your boss?" The philosophical weight of the question hung in the air. The crowd recognized the deeper truth. Respect shouldn't depend on someone's position or wealth. Kevin's survival instincts finally kicked in. "Ms. Jones, this is all a huge misunderstanding. I didn't know." "You didn't know what, exactly?" Imani asked, her tone deadly quiet. "You didn't know that black women deserved basic human dignity? You didn't know that assault is illegal regardless of someone's net worth?" Jessica Soto from NYC Street Beat whispered urgently into her phone. "This is unprecedented. The CEO of a major corporation was just assaulted by her own employee. This is going to be international news." Meanwhile, the corporate communications team at Apex Holdings Group headquarters was in full crisis mode. Emergency conference calls were being set up, stock analysts were being briefed, legal teams were being activated. The live stream viewers had exploded to over 100,000 across multiple platforms. The Eclat Mode scandal was trending nationally. News outlets were already preparing breaking news alerts. Imani reached into her briefcase one final time, withdrawing a tablet that displayed real-time social media analytics and stock price movements. "In the past 30 minutes," she announced to the crowd, "Apex Holdings Group stock has dropped 12%. Our market capitalization has decreased by $2.8 billion. Our brand reputation score has fallen to critical levels." Kevin's knees buckled. $2.8 billion. The number was so astronomical that his brain couldn't process it. "But that's not the most interesting part," Imani continued, her finger swiping across the tablet screen. "The most interesting part is that this incident is being broadcast live to 127,000 people across 6 different platforms. It's been shared 15,000 times on Twitter. Local news stations are en route." She turned the tablet around so the crowd could see the social media storm unfolding in real time. Comments were flooding in faster than human eyes could read. "Fire everyone involved. Boycott Eclat Mode. Sue them for everything. This CEO is a queen." "Mr. Miller," Imani said, her voice cutting through the digital chaos. "Do you understand what you've done? You didn't just slap a customer. You didn't just assault a black woman. You committed a felony against the CEO of your parent company in front of 100,000 witnesses. The legal implications hit Kevin like a freight train. Assault charges, civil rights violations, wrongful termination lawsuits. His entire life was crumbling in real time. But Imani wasn't finished. Ms. Vance, she addressed the regional manager who was still kneeling on the marble floor holding the business card like a death warrant. How long have you been aware of the discrimination complaints against this store? Diane's mouth opened, but no words came out. Every answer was a potential admission of guilt. 6 months? A year? Longer? Imani's questions came like precision strikes. How many customers of color have been mistreated while you looked the other way? How many employees have been harassed while you protected the harassers? The crowd watched the corporate hierarchy collapse like dominoes. First Kevin, now Diane. The systematic nature of the discrimination was becoming clear. David, the security guard, stepped forward. Ms. Jones, for what it's worth, I've seen this pattern before. Good customers are treated badly because of how they look. I've wanted to speak up, but you were afraid of your job, Imani finished. I understand, David. That's exactly the culture we're going to change. She closed the tablet and placed it back in her briefcase with the same careful precision she'd used to reveal it. The crowd remained transfixed as Imani pulled out her phone. The device was unlike anything they'd seen, clearly custom-made with corporate security features and direct access to executive communications. Maria, she spoke into the phone, her voice carrying clearly across the silent store. It's Imani. Yes, I'm still at store 47. No, the board meeting is the least of our concerns right now. The crowd leaned in, straining to hear the conversation that would determine the fate of everyone involved. I need you to patch me through to legal immediately. We have a code red situation. Employee assault on corporate leadership. Yes, you heard correctly. Full documentation required. Media containment protocols. And Maria, cancel all meetings for the rest of the day. We're going to be here for a while. She ended the call and looked directly at Kevin, whose face had turned ashen. Mr. Miller, in approximately 10 minutes, my legal team will arrive. They'll be accompanied by NYPD officers who will take your statement regarding the assault you just committed. You have until they arrive to decide how you want to handle this. Kevin's voice came out as a whisper. What? What are you saying? I'm saying you have 2 choices, Imani replied, her tone businesslike and final. Choice 1, you cooperate fully with the investigation, admit to your actions, submit to immediate termination, and hope that your cooperation influences the criminal charges you're facing. The word criminal sent shockwaves through the crowd. This had moved far beyond employment issues into felony territory. Choice 2, you continue to deny and deflect, forcing us to prosecute this case to the fullest extent of the law. Assault and battery, civil rights violations, possible hate crime charges given the racial nature of your comments. Diane Vance found her voice. Ms. Jones, surely we can resolve this internally. Imani's gaze shifted to Diane with laser precision. Ms. Vance, you were present when your employee committed assault. You witnessed the racial slurs. You have knowledge of systematic discrimination complaints that were ignored. You are not in a position to negotiate anything. The brutal reality of corporate accountability was playing out in real time. These weren't just employment issues. They were criminal matters that would destroy careers and potentially result in prison time. Kevin sank into a nearby chair, the weight of his actions finally crushing his defiance. I need a lawyer. That's probably wise, Imani agreed. But understand this. Your assault was witnessed by over 100,000 people and recorded from multiple angles. The evidence is overwhelming. Your only choice now is how much additional damage you want to inflict on yourself. The store had become a crime scene, a courtroom, and a corporate boardroom all at once. And Imani Jones stood at the center of it all, no longer the victim of discrimination, but the architect of justice. 10 minutes later, the flagship store transformed into a corporate war room. Imani's legal team arrived like a SWAT unit. 3 attorneys in charcoal suits carrying briefcases that probably cost more than Kevin's monthly salary. Behind them, 2 NYPD officers entered with the measured authority of law enforcement professionals who'd seen every type of human stupidity imaginable. The crowd had swelled to over 120 people, with more gathering outside the store windows. Chloe's Instagram Live peaked at 180,000 concurrent viewers, while news vans from Channel 7 and Fox 5 pulled up to the curb. Detective Maria Rodriguez, a 15-year veteran who'd handled her share of high-profile cases, approached Imani with professional courtesy. "Ms. Jones, I'm Detective Rodriguez. We understand there's been an assault." "Yes, Detective. At approximately 2:15 p.m., Mr. Miller physically struck me across the face after making racially charged statements. The entire incident was recorded by multiple witnesses." Imani's composure was remarkable. She spoke like she was discussing quarterly earnings rather than describing a violent crime committed against her. Lead attorney David Franklin stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Detective, we have comprehensive documentation of the incident. Video evidence from at least 6 different angles, including store security cameras, audio recordings capturing the racial slurs, and over 100 witnesses who can provide statements." Kevin Miller sat in the corner chair like a broken marionette, his expensive suit wrinkled and his face pale. The lawyer he'd frantically called was stuck in traffic, leaving him to face this corporate firing squad alone. Detective Rodriguez pulled out her tablet and began taking notes. "Mr. Miller, I need to inform you of your rights." "Wait," Kevin interrupted, his voice cracking. Before we go down that road, can I speak with Ms. Jones, please?" All eyes turned to Imani. Franklin shook his head slightly, silently advising against any private conversation with the perpetrator. "You have 2 minutes," Imani said, "and Detective Rodriguez stays within earshot." Kevin struggled to his feet, his hands shaking. "Ms. Jones, I made a terrible mistake. I know I can't take back what I did, but I want you to know that I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean to be racist?" Imani's question cut through his fumbling apology. "Or you didn't mean to get caught being racist?" The distinction was surgical in its precision. Intent versus consequence, character versus circumstance. "I don't know," Kevin admitted, tears forming in his eyes. I think I've been angry for so long that I stopped seeing people as people. My wife left me last year. My kids don't talk to me. I got passed over for promotion 3 times and I took it out on customers who couldn't fight back." The confession was raw and devastating. The crowd listened to a man dismantling his own life in real time. "So you targeted black customers because you thought we were easy victims?" Imani's voice remained calm, but her words carried the weight of centuries of injustice. Yes, I think I did, and I hate myself for it." The honesty was unexpected, but Imani had spent enough years in corporate leadership to recognize manipulation disguised as vulnerability. "Mr. Miller, your personal problems don't excuse assault. Your career disappointments don't justify racism, and your tears don't undo the damage you've caused to countless customers over the years." She gestured to her tablet, which displayed real-time analytics. "In the past hour, we've received 847 emails from customers sharing their experiences at this store. Stories of humiliation, discrimination, and disrespect. Your behavior wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern." Attorney Franklin handed Imani a thick folder. "Ms. Jones, we've compiled the data you requested. The financial analysis is comprehensive." Imani opened the folder and began reading numbers that would determine Kevin's fate and the store's future. "Store 47 generates $15.2 million in annual revenue," she announced to the crowd, her voice carrying like a prosecutor presenting evidence. However, when we factor in the cost of discrimination, lawsuits, settlement payments, employee turnover, and lost customer loyalty, the net profitability drops to $2.1 million. Diane Vance, who'd been silent since the lawyers arrived, suddenly understood the implications. Store 47 was profitable, but barely. Any major legal settlement could push it into the red. Furthermore, Imani continued, our brand reputation analysis shows that this single incident has already cost us $47 million in lost market value. Social media sentiment has dropped to critical levels. 3 major corporate clients have already canceled contracts pending investigation. The numbers were staggering. Kevin's moment of racist violence had caused more financial damage than most natural disasters. Detective Rodriguez stepped forward. Mr. Miller, based on the evidence and witness statements, I'm placing you under arrest for assault in the 3rd degree. You have the right to remain silent. Wait. Kevin's voice cracked with desperation. Ms. Jones, please, I'll do anything. I'll resign. I'll make a public apology. I'll donate money to charity. Please don't let this destroy my entire life. Imani studied his face for a long moment. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see if mercy would triumph over justice. Mr. Miller, you're asking me to show you compassion that you've never shown to anyone who looks like me. You're begging for forgiveness from someone you physically assaulted. Do you understand the irony? She closed the folder and handed it back to Franklin. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer you something you've never offered your victims. A choice. The crowd leaned forward, sensing a pivotal moment. Choice 1. You submit to arrest, face criminal charges, and we pursue civil litigation for damages. Your name becomes synonymous with corporate racism. Your career in retail is over. Your family deals with public shame for years. Kevin's shoulders sagged under the weight of potential consequences. Choice 2. You agree to become a case study for our new corporate reform initiative. You participate in 200 hours of racial bias training. You make public appearances speaking about the cost of discrimination. You work with our legal team to identify and eliminate systemic racism throughout our company. The unexpected offer sent murmurs through the crowd. This wasn't about revenge. It was about transformation. In exchange, Imani continued, we reduce the charges to a misdemeanor. You avoid jail time, and you have a chance to rebuild your life around something meaningful. Franklin looked surprised. This wasn't the scorched earth approach most corporate leaders would take. However, Imani's voice hardened. If you violate any terms of this agreement, if you speak negatively about this process, or if you ever discriminate against another human being, we will release every piece of evidence we have and pursue maximum penalties. Kevin wiped tears from his eyes. Why? Why would you give me a second chance after what I did? Because punishment without education doesn't change behavior, Imani replied. And because real-life stories like yours, stories of people who chose to change, have more power than criminal convictions to prevent future discrimination. She turned to address the entire crowd, her voice carrying clearly to the 200,000 people now watching across multiple platforms. This isn't about forgiveness. This isn't about being the bigger person. This is about understanding that systemic change requires systematic solutions. Destroying one racist manager doesn't eliminate racism, but transforming one racist manager might prevent 10 future incidents. The crowd erupted in applause. Comments flooded the live streams. This woman is a genius. Education over incarceration. Real change requires real solutions. Detective Rodriguez looked to Imani for confirmation. Ms. Jones, are you willing to modify the charges if Mr. Miller agrees to these terms? I am, but I want his agreement on record, witnessed by everyone here. Kevin looked around the store at the cameras, the crowd, the lawyers, the police. His entire life had collapsed in 90 minutes, but he was being offered a path to redemption. "I agree," he said, his voice barely audible. "I agree to all terms." Franklin handed him a tablet with a legal agreement already prepared. "Sign here, Mr. Miller, and understand that this document is legally binding." As Kevin signed his name, Imani addressed Diane Vance, who'd been standing frozen throughout the entire exchange. "Ms. Vance, you have a choice to make as well, but unlike Mr. Miller, you don't get to negotiate terms." The regional manager's career hung in the balance, waiting for judgment from the woman whose authority she'd failed to recognize until it was too late. The corporate restructuring began immediately. Within 2 hours, Imani Jones had transformed Store 47 from a symbol of retail racism into ground zero for systemic change across the Apex Holdings Group empire. Diane Vance stood before Imani like a defendant awaiting sentencing. The regional manager's 15-year career hung in the balance, her corporate handbook providing no guidance for this unprecedented situation. "Ms. Vance," Imani began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built a Fortune 500 company from nothing. "You supervised a store with 14 discrimination complaints in 6 months. You failed to address systematic bias. You enabled a culture of racism through willful ignorance." Diane's mouth went dry. Around them, the crowd continued recording, understanding they were witnessing corporate justice in real time. "However," Imani continued, "firing you would be the easy solution. It would make headlines, satisfy social media outrage, and change absolutely nothing about the underlying problems." "Folge," she gestured to her legal team, who produced another folder thick with documentation. "Instead, you're being reassigned. Effective immediately, you'll oversee our new Diversity and Inclusion Implementation Division. Your job will be identifying and eliminating discriminatory practices across all 847 stores. Your performance will be measured by customer satisfaction scores from communities of color." The assignment was brilliant in its poetic justice, forcing Diane to solve the very problems she'd ignored. "You'll work directly with Dr. Aisha Adebayo, our new Chief Diversity Officer who starts Monday. Your first project is developing the ECLA Respect Customer Feedback System, a direct pipeline from customers to corporate that bypasses store management entirely." David Franklin handed Diane a tablet displaying the technical specifications. "The app launches in 30 days. Customers can report discrimination in real time with automatic escalation to executive leadership. Every complaint receives a response within 24 hours. The crowd murmured approval. This wasn't just punishment, it was prevention. "Furthermore," Imani announced to the entire store, "we're implementing immediate changes across all Apex Holdings Group properties. Starting tomorrow, every store will display new signage. All customers deserve dignity, respect, and excellent service. Period. Report discrimination directly to corporate via the ECLA Respect app." Chloe continued her live stream, now reaching 250,000 viewers across platforms. Comments flooded in. "Systematic change. This is how you fix racism. Education over elimination." Imani turned to address David, the security guard who'd shown integrity throughout the crisis. "David, I'd like to offer you a position in our new Customer Experience Division. Your job would be training security personnel across all our stores in bias recognition and de-escalation techniques." David's eyes widened. "Ma'am, Yes, absolutely, yes." The promotion sent applause through the crowd, rewarding integrity while punishing prejudice. The message was clear. "The changes don't stop there," Imani continued, consulting her tablet. "We're establishing a $25 million customer dignity fund to compensate anyone who's experienced discrimination at our stores. Claims will be reviewed by an independent panel led by civil rights attorneys." She swiped to another screen. We're also implementing mandatory bias training for all 15,000 employees. Not a single-day seminar, but ongoing education programs developed in partnership with the NAACP and Anti-Defamation League. The financial commitment was staggering, but Imani understood that real change required real investment. Additionally, we're diversifying our supply chain. Within 18 months, 40% of our vendor contracts will be with minority-owned businesses. We're not just changing how we treat customers, we're changing who we do business with. Attorney Franklin stepped forward with final documentation. Store 47 will close for 1 week while all staff undergo intensive retraining. When it reopens, it will serve as our flagship diversity and inclusion showcase location. The irony was perfect. The store that had exemplified corporate racism would become a model for corporate reform. Imani's phone buzzed with updates from corporate headquarters. Our stock price has recovered 8% in the past hour. Social media sentiment is shifting from outrage to optimism. This is what happens when companies choose transformation over damage control. She looked around the store at the 120 people who'd witnessed this corporate revolution. Real-life stories like what happened here today don't have to end in destruction. They can end in construction, building better systems, better training, better cultures. Kevin Miller, still processing his dramatic fall and unexpected opportunity for redemption, approached Imani one final time. "Ms. Jones, I know I don't deserve this chance, but I promise you, I will spend every day proving that people can change." "Mr. Miller, I'm not giving you this opportunity because you deserve it. I'm giving it to you because other customers deserve better." "Your transformation isn't about your redemption, it's about their protection." The distinction was crucial. This wasn't about forgiveness, it was about prevention. As the crowd began to disperse, Imani's assistant arrived with fresh clothes and a car. The CEO needed to return to corporate headquarters to oversee the implementation of changes that would affect nearly 1 million customers across 3 countries. But first, she had one final message for the cameras still recording. Today proved that touching stories of discrimination don't have to remain just stories. They can become catalysts for real change. Black stories, real-life stories, and all stories of injustice matter when they inspire systematic transformation. The revolution was just beginning. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Store 47 had become a pilgrimage site for retail executives studying corporate reform. The Eclat Respect app boasted over 2 million downloads and a 4.9-star rating, with customer satisfaction scores increasing 67% across all Apex Holdings Group properties. Kevin Miller stood before a packed auditorium at Harvard Business School, sharing his story as part of Imani's corporate accountability program. His 200 hours of bias training had evolved into a full-time mission, speaking at universities, corporations, and community centers about the real cost of discrimination. "I was a middle manager who thought power meant putting people down," he told the audience of future business leaders. "I learned that real power means lifting people up. That's not just good ethics, it's good business." The Kevin Miller who'd slapped Imani Jones no longer existed. In his place stood a man whose life stories now included redemption, education, and purpose. Diane Vance had exceeded every diversity metric in her new role. The systematic changes she implemented resulted in an 89% reduction in discrimination complaints across the entire retail chain. Her quarterly reports had become case studies in effective corporate reform. David Carter now led a team of 200 security professionals trained in bias recognition and customer dignity protocols. His real-life stories from the front lines of retail helped shape policies that protected millions of customers. The ripple effects extended far beyond Apex Holdings Group. 12 major retailers had implemented similar apps and training programs. The Eclat model became the gold standard for addressing workplace discrimination in corporate America. Imani Jones graced the cover of Time magazine as CEO of the Year. But she knew the real victory wasn't personal recognition. It was systematic change. Black stories like hers were no longer isolated incidents, but catalysts for industry-wide transformation. The financial results spoke loudest to corporate boardrooms everywhere. Apex Holdings Group's stock had reached all-time highs. Customer loyalty among diverse communities increased 156%. Employee retention improved dramatically when workers felt empowered to speak up against discrimination. The most touching stories aren't about individual triumph, Imani explained during her TED Talk that garnered 15 million views. They're about how individual courage can inspire collective change. When we share our life stories, especially the difficult ones, we give others permission to demand better. The incident that began with a slap had evolved into a movement. The Hektunakikiklat model was used by employees across industries sharing their own experiences and demanding better workplace cultures. But the most powerful change was often invisible. The discrimination that didn't happen because managers remembered Kevin's story. The respectful service provided because employees understood their company's values. The dignity preserved because systems existed to protect it. Today, visiting Store 47 feels different. Customers of all backgrounds shop without fear of judgment. Employees treat everyone with genuine respect. The marble floors still gleam under crystal chandeliers, but now they reflect a culture of dignity rather than discrimination. Your voice matters. Your experiences matter. Your real-life stories can spark the next transformation. Have you witnessed discrimination in retail spaces, in your workplace, in your community? Share your touching stories in the comments below. Your Black stories, your life stories, all your stories of injustice and triumph deserve to be heard. Subscribe to Blacktail Stories for more inspiring accounts of resilience, justice, and systematic change. Hit that notification bell because every story of overcoming discrimination creates a blueprint for others to follow. Remember, real power isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. Together, our stories can change every store, every workplace, every space where dignity should never be negotiable. What would you have done in Imani's position? Tag someone who needs to see this transformation. Share your own experiences. Let's build a community where every voice creates.